Hello again. Today we have a modern Cartier Santos in for a maintenance service and refinishing of the case and buckle. If you'd be interested in this watch, it will be for sale on my eBay page, link in the description. The watch is currently working with a bit of a low amplitude but keeping good time. The main problem is the cosmetic issue. It is really scratched up and looking a bit warm, so we'll be taking the case and buckle apart, cleaning and then polishing and brushing them. We will start by taking off the strap with the 2 screw pins, and the strap just pulls out of the buckle. Then we can turn the case over and undo the 8 screws, revealing the movement, the somewhat smaller movement than one would expect. It is a Cartier caliber 076, which is based on and still labelled as an ETA 2671. We take off the automatic rotor, remove the crown and the case clamps, then take out the movement. With the crown back on, the hands can be aligned, so they can be removed and secured until they need to go back on. The crown comes back out to take the movement spacer off. The dial then can be released, removed and secured. The crown is then put back in again and we can start disassembling the movement. The first component to be removed is the hour wheel. The movement can then be turned over and put in a movement holder, and the automatic works removed. We'll now disassemble the automatic works into the ratchet wheel, driving wheel, reducing wheel and the pair of reversing wheels. You can see there is still oil on the cover plate, but on the automatic bridge the oil has dried up somewhat. With those parts secured, we can go back to the movement, let down the mainspring, so we are able to safely remove the balance and the pallet forks, the ratchet wheel and crown wheel, and the click. The going train bridge is removed, exposing, as you might have guessed, the going train of wheels. We can remove the centre wheel, third wheel, and escape wheel. The barrel bridge is then removed, then the barrel is taken out, along with the final intermediate wheel, and the tiny hack as well. The movement is then turned over to the dial side. The cover plate is removed, allowing the hour, minute and setting wheels to be removed. Setting lever spring, setting lever, yoke and yoke spring. And now to digress for a moment. The component I've just taken out is the date correcting operating lever. A mouthful to say and odd. As you can see, this movement doesn't have a date wheel. The dial does not have a date aperture, but the movement from ETA, the 2671, is one with a date. And Cartier have decided to remove the date complication rather than ordering an ETA movement without a date wheel, such as the ETA 2660, which has the same form factor, although isn't automatic. I suppose it is cheaper to bulk buy like that, and I doubt anyone would notice, as there is no ghost position when operating the crown. Anyway, back to the disassembly, and with removing the crown, the sliding pinion and winding pinion come out on their own. Now to take out the mainspring from the going barrel, and it looks like it has a bit of a twist in it, if only slight, but as we're here now, it will be replaced. Here is the movement entirely disassembled and ready for pre-cleaning. With the pre-cleaning, the components, except for the balance assembly and pallet forks, are soaked in isopropyl alcohol, and the jewel holes and other pivot holes are pegged out. The smallest components are placed into baskets, and they are ultrasonically cleaned using a water-based cleaner, deionized water rinse, and then 2 isopropyl alcohol rinses, whilst the balance assembly and pallet forks are cleaned manually. Now we have the movement completely clean, it's time for the case and buckle. The bezel on the case will be removed with its 8 screws. This allows the glass and the gasket to come out too. For the buckle, just 2 screws hold in the decorative plate. All of this needs to be cleaned before polishing, and a spot of rust needs to be removed from the buckle. As you can see, much better. There are many facets of the case, case back, bezel and buckle that need to be treated differently. The case back is entirely brushed. The buckle has brushed top and sides with polished bevel and buttons. The bezel is entirely polished. And the case, similar to the buckle, is brushed on the top and the sides with a polished bevel. We will start with the brushing. Parts are taped up to stop other areas being damaged whilst applying the graining. For the polishing, the parts are covered in a protective polymer solution on tricky areas that will not be polished, and thermally resistant tape is used for larger areas. There are 4 stages to the polishing, each using decreasingly abrasive compounds, to leave a mirror finish. The first stage removes the worst of the scratches. The subsequent stages remove the scratches from the last stage whilst polishing the material, until all the scratches are no longer visible. Also, the screws for the bezel get light polished too. All the tape and polymer are removed, and the parts are given a final clean. Now to reassemble the movement. Starting with a new mainspring, the walls of the going barrel are greased, the new mainspring inserted, barrel arbor oiled and replaced, and the lid put back on. We can start to put the movement back together by replacing the keyless works and motion works. Crown is greased, and the sliding pinion and winding pinion are slid over the stem of the crown. Next, the setting lever. then the very odd date correcting operating lever, yoke and yoke spring, and the setting lever spring. The cannon pinion and driving wheel assembly are oiled and replaced on the movement, along with the setting wheel, minute wheel, and the cover plate to secure all the components as we turn the movement over to install the going train and winding works. The intermediate wheel, going barrel, hack, the barrel bridge is replaced and the escape wheel installed, then the third wheel, the centre wheel is oiled and installed, and then the going train bridge. After all the wheels are replaced and are checked to be free spinning, the bridge screws are fully tightened. Then the crown wheel is oiled and replaced, and the barrel pivot is oiled before replacing the ratchet wheel. Next, the pallet forks can be installed and we could go on an oiling spree. Starting on the back of the watch, oiling all the pivots with Mobius 9010 for the low torque high speed pinions and HP 1300 for high torque low speed pinions. The same oils and amounts are used for the pivots on the dial side of the watch. Then the pallet forks are oiled with Mobius 9415. The movement is turned back over and the balance assembly is installed. It's always lovely to see a watch running again. Then the shock jewels are taken out, cleaned, oiled and replaced. The same is done for the shock jewels on the dial side of the watch. Taken out, cleaned, oiled and replaced. Then onto the automatic works. The reversing wheels are treated with Lubetta. Once dry, the ratchet wheel driving wheel, reducing wheel and the pair of reversing wheels are installed. The cover plate is replaced and the jewel holes oiled, on both sides of course, so the automatic works can be reinstalled. A few days later, and after some regulation of the movement, we can finish the watch off by replacing the hour wheel, dial, take the crown out and install the movement spacer, then the hour hand, minute hand and second hand are put back on and tested to make sure they don't interfere with each other. It's time to get this watch back together, starting with greasing the seals and replacing the glass under the newly polished bezel. For the screws on show on the bezel, I'm swapping out the steel screwdriver for a beryllium alloy one. That won't scratch the polished steel of the case or bezel if there are any slippages. With the bezel screws on, we'll prep the case for water resistance testing. The crown is removed from the movement, and new gaskets are put on and greased. The case back gasket is also greased and replaced, so the case back can be put on with the crown. The crown is taped so it doesn't fall out. Then the case is water pressure tested to 50 metres, which it passed. Whilst the case dries out, the buckle's polished plate can be put back on, using a little bit of Loctite for the screws. The movement is put back in the dried case clamps replaced, and the crown is pushed back into place. The automatic rotor is put back on and oiled, the case back is put back on loosely, time graph measurements are made, and the final regulation adjustments are performed, before tightly sealing the case back, and admiring our work, and putting a Cartier style strap on. Thank you for watching this service and refinishing of a Cartier Santos. If you have enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing, it really does help out me and the channel. Also, take a look at my website linked in the description if you would like your watch serviced, or my eBay page if you'd like to buy a watch that I have already serviced. Hope to see you all again soon. Bye for now.